Hey, what's up, YouTube? So it's safe to say that 2017 was an absolute disaster for the New York Football Giants. They went 3-13. They dealt with a variety of injuries and drama all season long. Particularly when it comes down to Odell Beckham Jr. and his injury situation, getting injured very early in the year, which really dampened the season from the very beginning. And then Eli Apple, all the drama surrounding him, all the drama surrounding Ben McAdoo, and how he just had no idea how to handle the Eli Manning situation, where, if you remember, he benched him late into the season, ending his consecutive play game streak. For Geno Smith, of all people, when they had Davis Webb, a rookie, on the roster that they could have thrown out there to see if he can get some experience, which, I mean, it makes sense that if you're a losing team, you want to throw a young quarterback out there, but Geno Smith? That makes no sense. It was one of the reasons why he was fired and why their GM was fired. Just a very miserable year overall, despite some very high expectations from New York Giants fans when they made this playoffs in 2016. They added some more veterans in free agency, such as Brandon Marshall. Kind of felt like they were on the up and coming, and it was just a miserable year for the Giants. And nothing went well for them. They just needed a clean slate this offseason, really start things over anew. So they brought in a new regime led by new GM Dave Gettleman, who, if you remember, he was the former GM of the Carolina Panthers, helped build that team into what they are today with Luke Kuechly, Cam Newton, all the star players that they have on that team. That's Dave Gettleman all over that roster. Still to this day, he's pretty much, his fingerprints are all over that roster that you see right now. But he also had experience with the Giants earlier on in his career. When Eli Manning was drafted there, Gettleman was working for the Giants front office then, so he's got some connection to the Giants. Bringing him back in to kind of revitalize his franchise to a degree. And he ended up getting a new head coach for this team as well, getting Pat Shurmur, who was the Vikings offensive coordinator last season, really helped that offense overachieve when Case Keenum had to step in and be their quarterback for the season. He did a very nice job over there with them. He has previous head coaching experience with the Cleveland Browns, where he did not do so well there, but, I mean, it's Cleveland. You're probably not going to do very well anyway when you're coaching over there. So they're bringing him in. Hopefully he can kind of right the ship a little bit, kind of change the culture a bit for this team. In terms of need going into this offseason, obviously changing the culture was the big thing. The Giants have always been a very well-run organization. But in terms of on the field, what they needed to kind of address in this offseason, first of all, the offensive line was absolutely atrocious last season. It was probably the worst line in football last season. And they had some notable players entering free agency as well. When you look at guys like Weston Richburg, Justin Pugh, to name a couple of them. They needed to fill a lot of holes on that offensive line. And man, it was really bad last season. So that was priority number one, really, from the get-go this offseason, because if you don't have an offensive line, you're not going to be able to protect Eli Manning, or if you potentially want to, draft a quarterback early in the draft, you want to be able to protect those guys. And they really are a terrible running game as well. So they need to address the offensive line right away. And then, speaking of the running game, running back, that was another big need for them. They still haven't found a franchise running back since Tiki Barber when he retired back in 2006. So over a decade ago, they still haven't had a bell cow running back since then. The running back game has been absolutely atrocious over the past few seasons. Some of that's because of the offensive line, and some of that has been just because they just don't have any talent at the running back position, really forcing Eli Manning and that offense to be very one-dimensional, passing-heavy offense. And then finally, speaking of Eli Manning, they needed to get a young franchise quarterback, I felt like, in this offseason, because Eli Manning, he showed many signs of being a declining player over the past few seasons. He's getting up there in age. He's not going to get any younger, certainly. And I've never felt like Eli Manning was a great quarterback anyways, so the fact that he's starting to decline at this point in his career means you're going to start to see some really crappy play from him going forward. And I just felt like getting a young quarterback, they were in a spot where they had the number 2 overall draft pick in this draft. They were in a prime spot to draft a quarterback of their choosing, really, besides the Browns, who were going to pick quarterback number 1. So, they were in an interesting spot where they could have potentially get a franchise quarterback early in the draft. There were a lot of great options for them there. But those are some of the needs going into the offseason for them. In terms of some of the departures for this team, obviously early in the offseason, excuse me, they ended up trading Jason Pierre-Paul, who's been one of their best defensive players over the past few seasons, to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for a third-round pick for a third-round pick, and they also swapped fourth-round picks with them. This was a necessary move, though, because they brought in a new defensive coordinator, James Bettcher, from the Arizona Cardinals, who loves to run a 3-4 hybrid scheme where they're very aggressive with their blitzing. They love athleticism on their defense, a lot more athleticism on the edges as well, where they want their outside linebackers to be very athletic and overall in their style. And Jason Pierre-Paul is more of a 4-3 defensive lineman anyway, so he just wasn't a fit for the defense. So getting some value for him there, I thought that was very nice for them. A very good move for this franchise to get, another additional draft pick for him. And then they lost, like I said, Weston Richburg, their starting center last season, Justin Pugh, their starting guard last season. Two players that were pretty solid overall. Both of them battled some injuries last season, and nothing really spectacular there. Neither of them are really Pro Bowl level players, but both are very solid overall. So to lose those guys, it's just another big hole, I think, for this offensive line they kind of fill, where they already had immense need at the left tackle and right tackle positions. So two more holes to fill in that offensive line. I mean, that's a bit of a problem for this team already. So big losses there in terms of the fact that you just need starting linemen to kind of fill out those roster. And then they also lost some veterans such as Brandon Marshall and Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, wide receiver and quarterback respectively. Releasing both of those players to clear some cap room, maybe clean up the locker room just a little bit because it was kind of toxic in the locker room last season. That was one of the biggest problems for the Giants because the talent was there for the Giants last season. It was just all the drama and injuries and stuff that really just derailed their season overall. So they need to fix that really first and foremost. So going into free agency, what did they do to kind of address these needs and fill up some of these needs when we saw some of these players depart this team? Well, first, the big move for the Giants was obviously signing Nate Solder, offensive tackle from the New England Patriots, on a 4-year, $62 million deal with $34 million guaranteed. And with this new contract, Nate Solder is now the highest paid offensive lineman in football. He may not be a great player overall, but they really needed to fill that spot. So they kind of figured, Dave Gettleman and their entire front office, they figured that, man, if we're going to need to protect our quarterback, we need to invest as much as possible. So that's what they did, signing the best offensive tackle on the market, even though it was a pretty weak market overall, but they got their man. And now Nate Solder, he's going to be manning the left tackle position for the near future as we see fit. They also addressed their running game as well, getting Jonathan Stewart, running back from the Carolina Panthers, on a 2-year, $6.8 million deal, $3.5 million guaranteed. He's a very bruising running back. He's still, he's very old right now. He's not the same player as he once was a couple of seasons ago when really he helped that Carolina be a very dominant running game when they made it to the Super Bowl with Cam Newton. He had that MVP caliber season. Not the same caliber player, obviously, but as a situational running back, where you can give him a few carries here and there, he can be pretty productive here and there. His yards per carry, though, they've really been going down overall. So a little bit questionable to give him a little bit more guaranteed money than I thought they would really necessarily need him to. But they also did another good thing in addressing the offensive line again to help that running game out once more, getting Patrick Omameh on a 3-year, $15 million, $10 million guaranteed type of deal. He's a guy that played for the Jacksonville Jaguars last season. Not the greatest offensive lineman in the world. He's very average overall, but he's a bruiser in the running game. He's a big dude along the offensive front, and they need to fill another starting spot. So he can be, a solid short-term option at the guard spot for them going forward. They also adjust their wide receiver position, getting Cody Latimer, who really won't be expected to do too much on a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. He's really in there more so for special teams and depth, but he's also got some upside in that he was a former second-round pick. So match him up there with Odell Beckham Jr. and Sterling Shepard, and maybe he can be productive besides those two there, and really, see if they can get anything on a prove-it type of deal. Not a bad signing for them. And then, like I said, defensively, they're changing their scheme. So they made a couple of moves to kind of change up that defense a little bit. In terms of free agency, they signed Kareem Martin, outside linebacker, on a 3-year, $15 million deal with $7.5 million guaranteed. Kareem Martin, he's not much of a pass rusher necessarily, but he's a bigger outside linebacker at 280 pounds. Very similar to a guy like a Parnell McPhee where he's not a great pass rusher necessarily, but he's very good in the running game. He's going to set the edge very well for this defense. He can be very versatile along their defensive front. Like I said, Bettcher as a defensive coordinator likes to be very versatile in his schemes, a lot of hybrid schemes. So that's kind of the role he's going to be playing there for them. And then they ended up trading for inside linebacker Alec Ogletree with the Los Angeles Rams, giving up a 4th and 6th round pick in this draft to go get him. This defense requires a fast, rangy inside linebacker, and that's exactly what Ogletree is. He's very good at pass coverage. He can go sideline to sideline. Not the greatest in terms of run support. He's not the greatest at taking on blocks and things of that nature, but they already have a lot of great run stoppers there, especially with Snacks Harrison up there. Olivier Vernon up there is more of a pass rusher, though. There's a lot of talent along this offensive line anyway to kind of keep blocks off of him. So bringing in a fast, rangy linebacker like Ogletree, I think that'll be very helpful for this defense overall. But moving on from free agency to the draft. Man, this is a big draft for the Giants, and this could affect their franchise for really the next 10 to 15 years, depending on where they decide to kind of go in the direction in terms of this franchise. Now, they had an opportunity with the second overall pick to draft a quarterback of their choosing. Obviously, Baker Mayfield, he went number 1, but they had a chance to get Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, whoever they wanted at that quarterback spot. And they decided to forego getting a quarterback and instead go in the win-now mode, getting Saquon Barkley, running back out of Penn State, who's going to fix the running back problem, that's for sure. Saquon Barkley, he was the best player in the draft. Dave Gettleman said going into the draft that when you're that high in the draft, you want to get a Hall of Fame type of player, and Barkley certainly has all the talent to be that type of guy. He can do everything in the running game and the passing game for him. He's an elite playmaker overall. He's going to be very exciting for the Giants overall. He's going to make an immediate impact, I think, for this offense. I'm going to get, more detailed in what I think about this pick going on, but in terms of the talent of the player, very good pick for the Giants there. Very nice player. He's going to be a Pro Bowl level player right away, unless he gets injured or something. Hopefully that doesn't happen, knock on wood there. And then in the second round, I thought they got a really nice value in getting Will Hernandez, offensive guard out of UTEP. He can fill in at the left guard spot next to Nate Solder and really be a big bruising force in the running game. He's just nasty in the running game. He was my second-rated offensive guard, interior offensive lineman in this draft class. I felt like he should have been a first-round pick personally. And to me, that's a steal to get him in the second round, where they really have upgraded their offensive line now with Nate Solder and Will Hernandez there. Very nice pick in the second round for them. And then the third round, they had 2 third-round picks. The first one they ended up using on Lorenzo Carter, outside linebacker out of Georgia, a very fast, rangy linebacker, 6'6", 250, can play the outside linebacking pass rusher role. He's a bit raw, but he's got a lot of upside. And like I said, in my mock draft, I had him going in the first round. So to get him in the third round, very good value there. And then they end up getting B.J. Hill later in the third round, defensive tackle out of NC State. He's not necessarily a great run stopper as a defensive tackle, but he's very good at getting up the field and being a very disruptive pass rusher in the interior. So he's a guy that can kind of be a situational guy for them going forward. And then they finally decided to address their quarterback situation in the fourth round, getting Kyle Lauletta, quarterback out of Richmond, a guy that I'm not too high on necessarily, but he was a guy that was kind of projected to go earlier in the third, maybe even second round. So they got him in the fourth round. So for them, that's pretty good value overall. But I'll get to their quarterback situation later. But, man, I just felt like they should have addressed that much sooner. So to kind of recap this thing. Well, I think there was a lot of good stuff about what the Giants did this offseason. It's not – my questions about this offseason aren't necessarily about the players that they brought in necessarily, because I feel like they did a very good job of addressing needs and bringing in very good players in. It was more about the direction that this franchise is going in general. So let me start with the positives. Obviously, they needed a clean slate in terms of the culture, and that's what they're getting here, getting rid of some of the baggage from their old regime, getting a new general manager in there, getting rid of some of the veteran players that were just being a little bit toxic in the locker room. And there's still a lot of talent on this roster, so maybe some fresh blood in the organization can really help revitalize that. That's what they did in this offseason overall, so that's a big positive for this franchise going forward. And I really like that they beefed up on the offensive line. Nate Solder, while he's very average as a player, he's getting overpaid. That's definitely the case there. He's definitely an upgrade over Eric Flowers, a left tackle, who was just absolutely atrocious last year at left tackle. And then you get a guy like Will Hernandez who can slide into left guard, maybe even right guard. He's a guy that I feel like can be a Pro Bowler down the line. So your offensive line is already much better than it was last season. And I'm assuming Eric Flowers, they weren't able to trade him at the draft day, so they're probably going to slide him over to right tackle where he's more naturally suited. He's probably still going to be god-awful there anyway, but he'll be better than playing left tackle and protecting Eli Manning's blind side. So a little bit better to put him at right tackle as of now. But overall, this offensive line, when you factor in that Omame is now there as well, much better than last season it looks like. Very good situation, I think, for the Giants. And overall, like I said, their draft was very good. I already talked about Barkley. He's going to be a fantastic player for them. Will Hernandez already talked about is going to be a fantastic player for them. But Lorenzo Carter, getting him in the third round is an absolute steal. He's a guy that has Pro Bowl level potential as an edge rusher. He's very versatile because he's so athletic, so fast overall. He can go sideline to sideline even as well, and even play inside linebacker in some cases. Very nice draft for the Giants in terms of the level of talent that they got. But in terms of the philosophy, I'll get to that later. Maybe not the best philosophy, I feel like. The running game is going to be much better with Saquon Barkley, like I said. He's going to be a guy that's going to step in and be an elite type of playmaker right away for this offense. And when you combine it with the fact that they're getting Odell Beckham back, this offense looks like it's going to be much, much better going into next season, which is definitely a positive, I think, for the Giants. They're going to be able to put up some points, I feel like, assume that Eli Manning can play, semi-productive football, which I still question. And that leads me into my negatives because I feel like the quarterback situation for the Giants overall not handled well whatsoever in terms of my opinion. Eli Manning, like I said, in my mind, he really doesn't have anything left in the tank. I kind of saw him really decline last season. He didn't really have a lot of help, obviously, but still, it looks like to me that Eli Manning, he just looks shot. His arm looks shot. He can't really move. He never really is a mobile guy anyway, but he doesn't really look like he can move in the pocket. He just does not look like a very good quarterback right now. The numbers kind of show that. The tape kind of shows that to me. Eli Manning, I really question whether he can really step in and still be a winning quarterback in this league. I think it's just foolish to think that the Giants can think that they can win now with him for the next couple of seasons and not have to address the franchise, the young quarterback going forward and get a guy that can kind of supplant him as their next franchise guy. I think it's really foolish of them to kind of think that. Very arrogant of them to think that Eli Manning can still be that guy going forward because what has he proven over the past couple of seasons to show that he's still a guy worth building around? In the 2016 season, if anything, he was the really main reason why they were held back for so long during that season, why they weren't an elite team, and why they were bounced in the first round of the playoffs against Green Bay that season. Their offense was absolutely horrid in 2016. They were terrible again in 2017 when Odell Beckham was gone. What has Eli Manning really showed to show you that he's worth building around for another couple seasons? You had the number 2 overall pick in the draft. Why not use that on a guy like a Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, a guy that's very similar to Eli Manning in terms of his play style? Why not get your young franchise quarterback then? I get that Saquon Barkley is a very good player. He's going to be excellent for the Giants overall. But, man, the quarterback position is the most important position, not only in football but in sports. And if you're not really addressing that position, you're just going to screw yourselves over in terms of the long term. So as much as you think that Eli Manning, he's going to win all these games for you in the short term, and we're going to be just fine if we just build around him and help him out, I really question that because if your quarterback can't play, it doesn't really matter who you have around you, unless you have an elite Denver Broncos, Chicago Bears, 1985 Bears, early 2000s Baltimore Ravens, early 2000s Tampa Bay Buccaneers type of defense to really carry your quarterback. You're not going anywhere in this league. And I just feel like they might be in a situation where they're going to be stuck in mediocrity. Also, in terms of free agency, like I said, Nate Solder is kind of, they kind of need to address that position left tackle. Nate Solder was really the only player on the market in terms of the draft and free agency. He's kind of the best option overall. So it's kind of like the situation where they had to get him. But like I said, he's a nice player, but he's not a great player. He's had a lot of injuries over the past couple of seasons. He's already 30 years old, and offensive tackles, as opposed to offensive guards, they don't really age too well just because of injuries in terms of that situation. So he's going to be very old on this 4-year contract, and he's got a lot of money guaranteed on this contract. I just feel like with the fact that he's now the highest paid offensive lineman in football, this is going to kind of backfire down the line. He might be a very good solidifying force this next season, but don't fool yourself. This isn't an Andrew Whitworth situation with the Los Angeles Rams where he's going to hit the fountain of youth and just be a great left tackle for them and really help solidify this offense. No. Nate Solder's never been that type of offensive lineman. And I just feel like this might backfire just a little bit in terms of the long-term mindset. Overall, I just think they would have opted to rebuild. I feel like that's kind of the situation where I thought the Giants were in. That's what I would have done if I was the GM. I would have kind of gone with a little bit of a rebuild for this team. And instead, it feels like the Giants are kind of setting themselves up to be stuck in mediocrity, like I said, because they're focused more on winning now on this next upcoming season rather than kind of thinking about the long-term prospects of this organization. So overall, would I grade this New York Giants offseason? I give it a solid B- overall. Because while I think the Giants got a lot of good players in this offseason and will certainly be a much better team in 2018 as opposed to 2017, I just question the long-term stability of this organization going forward. This offseason is a very prime opportunity to kind of change things up and set the franchise up for a future with getting another young quarterback into the mix with Eli Manning getting older. And they just simply failed to capitalize on that. I just don't believe in Kyle Lauletta or Davis Webb as, potential guys to build around if Eli Manning starts to break down now. However, the goal for Dave Gettleman seems like it was to win now and kind of set themselves up to win in 2018. In terms of that sense, they did a great job of that. They got a lot of great players. Saquon Barkley is going to be incredible. Will Hernandez, Nate Solder, they can kind of solidify their offensive line. Their defense looks like it's going to be good again. They have a lot of talent there. So overall, their team is much better going into next season. This is why overall I think their offseason turns out to be more of a positive than a negative because, man, you want to plan for the long term in the NFL, but I understand wanting to play the short-term game because, like I said, the NFL stands for not for long. And if you're going to plan for the future, you got to be willing to kind of plan for the short term as well. So those are my thoughts on the New York Giants offseason in 2018. Let me know in the comment section below, especially if you're a Giants fan. Let me know what you think about the quarterback situation particularly. What are your thoughts on Eli Manning and that situation, how it's going to unfold? Please leave a like and subscribe for more content such as this. Thanks, guys, for watching.